one of the core aims for Be The Drop, as you know, as a business communication, so narrative marketing communicates through Be The Drop, is because we're investigating all these areas that we work with clients on, so that we develop an understanding and knowledge and experience of how this works. You know, we're experimenting on our own content, and then we can then apply that for customers. Hi, and welcome to episode 52 of Be The Drop. This is a very exciting episode because we are celebrating two very important milestones. The first one, that's right, two. The first one being the month of September marks 3 years since I started narrative marketing, and that humble journey and where I've gone and what's happened. And over that time, from beginning as a sole trader to now with 2 part-time staff, which you'll hear a little bit more from soon. But also, being episode 52, this marks 1 year of Be The Drop podcast. To celebrate, I am joined by Chief Wordsmith, Jojo Furnival, and Chief Videographer, Chris Warman.
Hello.
Who are the team behind the scenes at Narrative Marketing. Thanks for joining me, Jojo.
Oh, no worries.
And thanks for joining me, Chris.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So Jojo and Chris are the team that have been working over the past year, bringing together the episode content that is released through Narrative Marketing's blog and the social media channels, and obviously with the podcast. So in today's episode, what we're going to do is have a little bit of a reflection and look back at what we've learned, both from the guests that we've interviewed, but also through the process that we've been on. Because from the very beginning, from the first Be The Drop episode to now episode 52, we have been constantly evolving and learning, which was one of the aims for Be The Drop, was to really discover and investigate what content works, where to place it, and how we can use that. And that is one of the things that we ask guests on the podcast as well. But also, obviously, we've learned that from the back end side of releasing the content. We're also going to be having a look at storytelling, which has become a prominent theme and something that we're very passionate about here at Narrative Marketing. So, Jojo, let's get this started with you.
Oh.
Let's start by unpacking that. Why storytelling? What's happened? And obviously, Narrative Marketing was the name of the company, so there's a background to that. But through Be The Drop and the work that we've been doing, we've really solidified that. Have you got any comments around that?
I think the thing is about storytelling is that stories are memorable. And so I would much rather, it's easier for me as an adult, but it's actually even easier for us as children to learn through stories. That's how we take on information. That's how we remember how we're supposed to act and behave, and the point that is is being put across to us. So now in the world of marketing, and we call that, the message, stories and the art of storytelling is a really powerful and effective way to get that message across. If they're told a story about how that product can be used, how their life is going to play out, be better with the use of that product, rather than a list of benefits or things that this product can do, having a story to allow people to imagine them using it is it's just a lot easier for people to take on that information.
Yeah, but unlike the part of the advertiser or the product manufacturer, it's so easy just to default to listing what you can do with something, or even like client testimonials is a bit like, ooh. But anyway,
this is what we did and how we used it. So it's more the features.
Yeah, but if they can if they have the confidence to let go of writing a features list on advertising, then they can instead advertise not the product, but like the feeling or the experience during the product's use, but not even necessarily including the product, is like quite a brave way to advertise, but still quite effective.
And I think what you've touched on there, Chris, quite a brave way to advertise. And that's something that a journey that we've been on as well, because, you know, we're based in Adelaide, and traditionally there is a bit of a conservatism around Adelaide, although we have certainly experienced guests on the podcast that are definitely breaking those molds and are not staying within the conservative, traditional, potentially historical business operations for Adelaide. But how does a business use storytelling and maintain the seriousness?
Yeah.
So what are your thoughts on that, Jojo?
We have to lead by example, and we have to walk the talk, if you like. And then as part of our sort of education process and getting people to understand that storytelling is going to get results, you know, it's other examples and big businesses and big industry leaders that are already adopting this strategy. And there's one example that I always refer to, which is Qantas and their latest ad campaign, which is all about coming home, and it just tells a story so brilliantly. Okay, you see some planes, but they don't talk to you about their planes. They don't talk to you about
seat size,
their routes, the features. No,
Price,
it's just
people
painting a
on the
picture,
plane.
telling a story about coming home and how do you get home. Stories can make you feel. And if a brand, if a business can make you feel something, then they've had a reaction. And if they've had a reaction, they're going to remember you. They're more likely to come to you in the future. They're more likely to buy. They're more likely to interact with you. So yeah, it's the emotional response that I think is really important that storytelling has.
Yeah, and with that Qantas ad, I'm assuming that they know that the customer knows they can find detailed information and pricing elsewhere.
Yeah.
But the front-facing marketing doesn't have to be the same as the detailed, descriptive, you know.
Information.
Yeah.
Go to the website and get the details. Yeah, so what you're talking about there, Chris, is that it needs to be a multi-layered approach. And I think that's really important. And that's what, you know, superhero has been an element that we've built into narrative marketing, but it won't be our only story. Jojo is our wordsmith, and Chris is our videographer, and I get to be chief storyteller, so I bring multiple elements together. So what we really want to look at and unpack as well is those differences. So Chris, do you want to start with us and talk about, firstly, why are you passionate about video storytelling?
Most video, unless it's like popcorn TV or something, it like demands attention. So you go to the cinema and you're sitting there and you're there to see the video specifically, or like you're watching Game of Thrones or you're watching Facebook Live or something. It just like, that's what you're there to do. So I don't know, you kind of feel like when I was starting to do video, I realized that it was a way of, I don't know, I wasn't necessarily an outgoing teenager, so I thought that was like an outlet I could do, that I could show people something that I've done and get feedback.
That's really interesting though, because you did it, like your motivation was very focused around having something to show people.
Yeah.
Which is, that would be totally different for me. I rarely show people my writing. Doing it is very much about it's about processing my thoughts. And that is actually something that has been mentioned previously in the podcast. Sally Hart, exactly. Very much a process driven thing. So you talked about when you were a teenager, or it was even before I was a teenager, to be honest. I loved writing, but just getting my thoughts down onto paper.
It's interesting because elements of what you're both saying is true for my communication style, but mine's an oral. It's a talking, like exactly the process you're just saying now. I have to have the conversation. I have to actually talk to people about it, multiple people, and I can completely change my mind. So what is then, you know, if we're looking at storytelling within a brand storytelling context as well, what is that relationship between the visuals and the words, Chris?
Well, that's what we've been trying to work out with Be the Drop and narrative marketing stuff.
Yeah.
Subtitles on videos been quite good because then we can pull a transcript out of a video and then that can help Jojo with her words, but also just complementing videos with blog articles and then putting them together so that either you read the blog and then you watch the video, or you watch the video and then you want to find out extra interpretations that we couldn't film on the day that were written, or like in hindsight.
I think something that's quite interesting and important that you touched on there is that different people will be able to access the content in different ways.
I was just going to say, because I think, and you know, as we all know, like people learn in different ways. And people absorb information. You know, some people are very visual learners. Some people have to do to learn, and so if you've got the different media all working together, you should be able to access the information in a medium that works for you, in a style that you can process the information.
On Facebook and similar things, you've got a written piece of text and then we've got the video, and then they complement each other in that if people are seeing the picture and then they look up to the writing and they see a bit more information about it, or the subtitles at the bottom.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. It's like the visual is the eye grabber, is the attention grab, and then the text is often the like converter.
And the context, you know.
Yeah, that gives you the context and the call to action. It's like, oh, this is like sucked me in visually, and then what do you want me to do with that?
Yes.
But in the case of someone looking for something specific, if they saw the writing, for example, how to get more clicks,
followers
or something,
Yeah.
they'd see the text and then they'd follow on to the video if they wanted to do a step-by-step thing.
Yes.
Which the text would come first, but
Yeah,
it
so
kind of
they
works
can-
either way depending.
It can,
it
it can
can
be
work
both.
either way.
Exactly. And you need to develop your content with that in mind so that it can. And I think that's what you're saying. You know, we've been investigating this. The one of the core aims for Be the Drop, as you know, as a business communication, so narrative marketing communicates through Be the Drop, is because we're investigating all these areas that we work with clients on so that we develop an understanding and knowledge and experience of how this works. You know, we're experimenting on our own content and then we can then apply that for customers. So Chris, then what is, you know, if we're talking about, we've just led into different platforms, what is for you your favorite communication platform? Where are you?
Okay. Well, I guess I use Facebook more than any other, but if it comes to favorite, I mean, I started out on YouTube like early days, 2006, and I'd sort of been playing with it since then, and I've sort of seen it evolve. Like it's been someone that has helped me out, I guess. Because that was something I used to put my older video work on, and then you'd get comments, and most of them would be not great comments, but you'd get feedback, and the fact that you're getting feedback, I guess that was pre-Facebook days, really. And then the fact that someone online anywhere, it kind of opened up the world where you could realize that people were communicating with you. Of course, now with Facebook Live, it's the barrier's gone so narrow that you can say something on a video and then 5 seconds later, before the video is even finished, you can get feedback about how it's going, or you can ask people questions. Whereas how I remember video initially, at least, was I'd spend a lot of time and make sure it was exactly the way I wanted it before anyone else got to see it.
Yeah.
And then I got the feedback. So I guess there's something to think about where you can almost create a better video while you're making it.
That's cool.
So then Jojo, you open up some interesting thoughts.
You do. Much food for thought.
And I think the thing is, it's that there's a space for differences. Yeah. But Jojo, what about yourself? Do you have a favourite communication platform?
I think so. I'm always going to have a space in my heart for blogging. So yeah, your slightly longer form blog posts, and I guess back in the day, you know, pre-blogs, that would have been like your opinion column in a newspaper or magazine.
Well, it's interesting because thinking about the question myself, like I went where you were talking about in your introduction, and for me it's face-to-face communication. If we're talking about our favourite platform, I mean, and the fact that this podcast is done in person is because I'm just such a I'm just so wedded to it. Like, you know, if for me, I need to read people's body language. I need to be, you know, yes. Like, and I'm a people person. And that's originally, you know, too many years gone back. When I started marketing and studied marketing, it was because I liked communications and dealing with people. But I studied my degree before Facebook existed. And so it was a different sort of approach. But now we're evolved and looking at that way, and when we talk about this a fair bit, is then how do we look people in the eye digitally? You know, how do we take that? Because whilst I might be passionate about interpersonal and personal communication, it's not practical in a business sense to have all of your conversations in person. How do we use digital communication to expand on your personal business relationships? So someone you might have met somewhere, how do you then use digital and this other content that we're creating to build those relationships and build the customer loyalty?
I think, and this has also come up in previous from previous podcast guests. So Michelle, who was talking about LinkedIn specifically, she was discussing how, you know, she would go to a networking event or she would meet somebody at a dinner party and they would form that, there'd be a business connection, and then she would use LinkedIn. I mean, that was her tool of preference, but you could easily use whichever social media platform as the tool to nurture that relationship and just keep that lead warm. And then you go into that sort of thought leadership space, because that's how you can add value to those people. Yeah.
And so it's interesting because then really it comes again back to the multi-layered approach. But also, even though my preference is for an interpersonal face-to-face, it's not feasible for that to be the only method of communication. No. Like there's no scale of economy in that. You can't grow from that perspective. So if I only ever did business in person by myself, I just couldn't do that.
There's just not enough time.
No. So I love it, but then I've also learned to love lots of these other digital platforms, and the convenience and the fact that you can communicate with someone across the other side of the world, that you can nurture business relationships and really do that in a time economical way. For me,
well, even your interview, your podcast episode with Vin was so great. I mean, you guys weren't in the same room, but I think that we managed to achieve with that podcast episode, a consistent, a coherent, what's the word? Image representation of a face-to-face of face-to-face communication, even though it wasn't.
Yeah, I know. Out of the whole year of episodes, he was the only one that we didn't do in person. He was in the process of, they were having their first child and moving to LA, so big things that Vin was doing. And I knew that his story, I needed to capture that interview with him because his messages are so powerful. And as a live performer, he is incredible. So one day we'll get down face to face and chat with him, but it might have to be in LA. Oh, that'll be tough. Okay, so Chris, for you then.
Yes.
And we'll talk about this from a visual storytelling perspective. What do you think are the greatest challenges associated with that?
Oh, the video.
As a communication, what's its
greatest
challenge?
If you're just trying to do video for the first time, I guess you'd need a really. You can't just launch yourself into it necessarily, unless you've got the time and you're not trying to burn your reputation or anything. You can sort of you realize that if you're putting videos on YouTube has a massive market still of people watching video, but you need to understand what people are watching on YouTube and then therefore how you should make video content for that platform. And then, like I was saying on Facebook, like I feel like that the quality of YouTube video wouldn't necessarily translate to Facebook super well. I know
there's a greater allowance on Facebook for
anything goes. Yeah, kind of like the Vine mentality where you're doing like a short video.
Or candid camera, somebody just happened to record somebody stacking it.
Yeah.
And that's Facebook. That could be a viral Facebook success.
if someone's trying to do some content, some video content, they should know what platforms they're using. I think that's what we're going to try and do in the future, a couple of blogs about what sort of video you should focus on and how to do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, advice
Sharing
from
some
Chris.
tips.
Yeah, good. We'll look out for that.
For the future.
Yeah, good. So Jojo, then, for you in that written context of storytelling, what do you think is the greatest challenge?
So, yeah, I think that, Bill Gates said famously in 1996 that content is king, and it definitely is. But we're now in 2017 and there is so much content out there. It's no longer sufficient to just write about something that you like or something that you know about. SEO has become so important. Doing research into what your audience wants to know about, those sort of search terms, and being really strategic in how you optimize your written content is just more important than ever. And I think so that's the question was, challenge. That is a challenge because again, these days, I've heard heaps of people, all the good keywords are taken, and all this, and was sort of talking about topics now. And because the landscape just moves so rapidly, what worked last year, it doesn't necessarily work this year. Google doesn't always tell you what they're doing and how they're changing their algorithm. So you're always playing catch up.
Yeah. And I think that touches on one of the greatest challenges that I find is that constantly keeping up to date and informed. And obviously, because we provide these services for clients, it's really important for us to stay up to date, but it's so rapid, we constantly sort of like, oh, what is it now? What layer is this? What layer is that? And so that for me is a great challenge. Okay, well, thank you so much for joining the chat. I'm very excited that we're celebrating both 3 years of narrative marketing, 1 year of Be The Drop. It's a really good accomplishment. And for me personally, I can't achieve that without both of you. So thank you. It's really important because a waterfall, the Be The Drop, it comes from a waterfall begins with one drop. So in no endeavor are you solo and singular, and narrative marketing is no different. So, whilst the original passion and drop might have come from me, I'll never achieve what I want to without it. And so it's great having you drops on board.
You've taken us on your journey.
Down the waterfall.
So, but you're not quite off the hook yet. We need to, in conclusion, finish with our Be The Drop tips. So, Chris, would you like to start off with Chris's Be The Drop tip?
Okay. All right. I will start off with my
He's going to have to totes cut that.
So my Be The Drop tip would probably be around the knowing your platform sort of thing. So I'd go from my video perspective where, people can't just assume that you can make a video and then put it everywhere and have the same people engage with it to target the same people. But if you're going to focus on Facebook video, you've got to know how it works. So know the platform at the current point in time, and then be aware that it might change over time, and they might introduce new things like Facebook Live, and then people just need to get on board with that as soon as it happens. And even the Facebook cover photo video thing, that's been quite fun. Just understanding that video can be so varied. It can be a banner image, it can be live directly from what you're doing, just from your house. It can be super polished. It can be a live broadcast or a post broadcast of an event. Just keep up to date in how you can use the tools that you have.
Okay. Jojo, what's your Be The Drop? Jojo, what's your Be The Drop tip?
Okay, so I think my Be The Drop tip is, whether you're talking about video or written content or whatever type of content it is, use your people. If you're a brand, you're a business, remember that humans are hardwired to take an interest in other humans. It's a survival of the species thing. You know, we're not interested in companies. I can't relate to a company, but I can relate to people. So remember that your business is made up of people, and use their stories to bring your brand or your business to life. That would be my Be the Drop tip.
Great.
And you know, if you're not, and this is where, you know, if you still want to ensure that your tone of voice and the message is still corporate sufficiently, it's still consistent. That's how there are ways of doing that. If your people don't necessarily have to write the content themselves. There are people like us that can do it for you.
I like that. Okay, so my Be the Drop tip is
Yeah.
What is it?
What
I know. And so
Amelia, what is your Be the Drop tip?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. So, and obviously the Be the Drop tip is a communication tip. So this one's might seem a bit strange, but it is, you can't manage what you don't measure. So that it's based around that. And that sounds like, you know, something more like an accounting or some sort of thing. But realistically, for me, you cannot build a successful communication, you know, process or relationship if you don't know what it is that you're going to communicate. So that's the measuring part of it. So you need to know, what are you going to say? You need to have a strategy in place that helps you understand what you want to say and with whom you want to talk to. So if you don't know those things, if you haven't put a measurement or a strategy in place to begin with, then you will not be able to communicate well. You're not going to hit the mark. You know, if you've got the wrong message to a particular group of people, it won't resonate. They won't connect. And I think Jojo said the other day, you know, you could have the most incredible message. It could be super fantastic, but nobody will hear you in a vacuum, or I can't remember what
in an empty room.
Yeah, nobody's going to hear you in an empty room. So I suppose in a more succinct way, communication starts with strategy.
Boom.
So that's like, and we are communication specialists, and one of the most important and valuable things we can do for you is work out the strategy. Because if you get that right, then you are much more likely to have success.